What's up, everybody? My name is Jeremiah Jones. Today we're going to make a tool pouch. Before we do that, I'm going to go over a few of the details in our sewing room here at OpenWorks. While we're making this bag, I'll go into more detail about the machines that we have here, but we have our Lockstitch machine, and then if we come over here, this is our walking foot machine. Again, I'll go into more detail a little bit later, and our serger over here. Each machine has its own thread stand right next to it. We try not to crisscross or misuse any of the thread. The thread associated with the serger is located right here. Same for our walking foot machines. You can see the machines here. Thread stand's located right next to that. The thread is, our walking foot machines are much heavier. They require a much heavier thread. So we don't want to use the lighter threads on there. It will definitely break. Over on this side of the room, we have a wide variety of hand tools for your disposal. We got scissors, nippers, seam rippers, soft tapes, needles for the machines, pencils, everything you need. Highly recommend bringing your own hand tools. Nothing beats your own pair of scissors, especially if you're left-handed like me. But these are here if you need them, okay? There's also accessory feet and a guide over here that tells you how to use them, what machine they're for, and what kind of stitches they do. We also have our ironing station. Pretty cool setup here. There's a pedal located on the floor. To turn the iron system on, just step on the pedal. The light will come on. That indicates that the iron is on. Step on the pedal, turn it off. Easy as that. We're going to kick it off on the serger. All right, so serger. This is most commonly found in our knitwear garments. You see it in t-shirts, sweatshirts, sweatpants, that kind of thing. It's a dynamic stitch. It allows the fabric to stretch and move. In this case, we're actually using it to control the little flyaways from our cut fabric. So what this is going to do is going to take the 4 cones of thread that we have up here, and across between sewing and knitting, it's going to actually overlap the edge here with a thread that's going to encapsulate it and actually cut away our little flyaways here along the edge. I just want to show a few details of the machine. To turn the machine on, we got a power switch on the far right over here. Okay. You also note that it turns on the light. If the light doesn't come on, there's a secondary switch on top, just in case somebody else turned that off. If you go to the bottom of the machine, you'll note that there are 2 pedals. We're going to start with the small pedal. When I step on that, that actually lifts the foot up here. So the presser foot that's going to be holding our fabric in place while we sew is lifted like that, just enough that we can get our work underneath the machine there. Second pedal is actually has 2 functions. If you press down on the pedal, it's our gas pedal. It activates the machine and gets her sewing. To stop the machine, you just put pressure back on your heel, and that'll actually stop the machine on a stitch. It's very fast. There's a mechanical brake in there that allows it to stop immediately. All right, if you come up to the top of the machine, right next to our foot, there's actually a knife right here. Okay, this is a knife that's going to trim all of our loose little pieces here. You can see it. I'm going to move it up and down right there, this guy right there. Okay, that's what we want to align the edge of our fabric with. We don't want to take too much off. If we were to put this in the middle, it would cut this fabric in half and serge one side and drop the other. Okay. All right, so I'm going to lift the foot with my small pedal. My machine is on, light is on. I'm going to slide my fabric in just in front of the needle, and I'm actually using this edge of my fabric. I'm lining it up with the edge of my knife right there. So I know that that knife is going to trim these small pieces off. Okay. I'm going to give it a little bit of gas, and I'm just going to, with my hands here, I'm just going to match the speed of the machine. Nice and smooth. A unique feature of Serger, it's the only machine, one of the only machines that we can actually sew off of fabric. So you'll note there's no fabric in there. I can still step on the gas and sew. The reason why that is because it's constantly making this stitch that runs between the foot and the feed dogs, which are the little teeth inside there. That prevents it from wearing their parts out. So with a conventional sewing machine, we can't run it without having a piece of fabric in there. That's critical. All right, so we sewed off the edge. We're gonna line up our next seam, drop our foot, same place. Just give it a little bit of gas. You can actually see the knife trimming away some of the fibers. They actually drop into a chute that funnels down into a trash can right next to me. So there's a little V-notch here. You can just bring your thread chain in there and just pull it to cut your threads. So we're going to repeat this process on all four sides of our fabric. Lift the foot, line it up with my knife right here. Give it a little bit of gas, and again, I'm just going to match the speed of the machine with my hands as I feed it in. The feed dogs, the machine's doing all the work. I'm just matching the speed and keeping it nice and straight. All right. So off the fabric, come up into the V-notch right there. Cut your thread. Ready to start the next edge. All right. A little bit of gas. We have the speeds turned all the way down on these machines, so my pedal is all the way to the floor on this, so they're not going to run away from you. These machines are designed to run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're very robust, and I prefer to teach on these because we can fix most of the problems. With a home machine, a lot of the parts are made out of plastic. The gears and cogs, the teeth eventually wear away, and they become really difficult to replace. And sometimes the cost of replacing those parts costs more than a new machine of the same value. So I prefer to teach on industrial machines because of how sturdy they are. They really hold up to the abuse. All right, so we've serged all of our fabric. Everything is in control. You can see that our edges are nice and clean. There's nothing flying away from it. Fabric looks nice and square. We're ready for the next step. We're going to get our zipper and we're going to move over to the Lockstitch machine. All right, so I got my zipper tape here. I got one slider and one piece of scrap fabric just to get comfortable on the machine again. All right, so this is our Lockstitch machine. It's a Juki 8700. Power switch, same place as the Serger. It's on the far right of the machine here. Turns the light on, just like our Serger, so you'll find a lot of similarities there. If you look down at the bottom of the machine, we've got our gas pedal again, but you don't see the small pedal. Gas pedal and brake, yep. If you remember before, you put your heel down to brake, and that'll actually stop you on a stitch. Now the foot lifting pedal that was on the Serger is replaced by what we call a knee lift, okay? So when I'm talking about foot lifting, this is our foot. This is it lifting. There are two ways to lift it. There's a lockup right here, okay? So you can use this to lift the foot. Very common, you'll see this on home machines. It's very similar. If you come down to the bottom side of the machine, right next to your right knee, there's a paddle right here. And as you hit this with your knee, it actually lifts the foot. Okay. This is great. It really allows you to use your hands. You can really use both hands to position and manipulate multiple layers of fabric and get it right where you need it to be under the needle. All right, so that's the lower half of the machine. Working our way up. we've got a reverse lever here, okay? When we start every stitch and stop it with every stitch, we want to put in a back tack. Back tack, rule of threes here. We're going to go 3 stitches forward, hit reverse, 3 stitches back, 3 stitches forward. Okay, so you've sewn over that first 3 stitches a total of 3 times. So now you've got a nice solid anchor point in your stitch line. Okay, so that's what we use reverse for. Moving up from there, this is our stitch length. So you'll note the numbers here. These are millimeters. That determines how long your stitch is. Okay, that may vary depending on the thickness of your material. So if you're sewing through a lot of material and you have it set at 2, that's going to look different than if you have a very small amount of material and set at 2. Okay. Moving up from that, we've got our hand wheel on the side here. Okay. This is critical. Okay, so we're going to use this to control our needle position, which is fundamental to every start and stop of our sewing. Okay. I'm going to come across the head of our machine. We've got our tension knob right here. Okay. This has a spring behind it and it's pressing on these 2 discs. As you tighten it, it puts more pressure on the discs, applying more pressure on the thread, thus controlling the tension of the thread. So we'll go into more detail as we start to sew. Right next to that, and this is a lesser known part people don't really talk about, this is called your thread take-up arm. Okay. To me, this is critical. This tells me everything about what's happening inside the machine. Okay, so every time I stop sewing, I want to make sure that my thread take-up arm is all the way at the top, and I'll refer to that as neutral. Okay, so you want your thread take-up arm in neutral or at the top of its rotation, and that tells me that nothing underneath, there's no stitch that's been made, and you should be able to pull your thread through the machine nice and smooth. Okay, so right now we're neutral, everything looks good, the machine's threaded properly. Well, not quite. I'm just gonna pull that out. We've got one more eyelet to go through there. All right, let's see if we can. All right, just trimming my thread end and making sure my thread is threaded through the needle properly, and that's from left to right. All right, through the eye of the needle, I'm going to bring it between the toe to the back of the machine. We're almost ready to sew. So next thing I want to go over is bobbin. Okay, bobbin. The bobbin is our lower source of thread that's located inside the machine. Most of the time when you change the bobbin, you don't have to tip the head back, but I'm going to tip the head back so you all can see what we're looking at here. All right, so right here, you see this is our bobbin inside our bobbin case. Okay, I'm just going to tip that out and just pull it straight out. Okay, just gonna pull that thread through. All right, you can see our bobbin in there. Note the direction in which the bobbin is turning as I pull the thread. It's going clockwise. We want to make sure every time we change the bobbin that it turns the same direction. Okay. It's also noted on the side of the machine here in some of the threading instructions. So, good place to reference that. So, while this lever is out, the bobbin is actually held in place. So you can see it won't fall out if I'm holding that lever. If I drop that lever, the bobbin comes out nice and easy. Okay. All right, so this bobbin's blue. My top thread's black. I'm feeling kind of picky today, so I think I want a black bobbin. So we're going to go ahead and move to the other side of the machine, and we're going to wind a bobbin now. Now we're going to wind a new bobbin. So, got my empty bobbin here. We're just going to slip it on to our post. Okay. Got my thread here. I'm going to pull out a nice long tail. 10, 12 inches past the bobbin is okay. So we're going to come up from the bottom of the bobbin. So note the thread is coming up from the bottom. Going to drop into the bobbin there, and we're going to wrap it around 5 times. All right, so now nice long tail, wrapped it around 5 times. I'm going to switch hands. I'm going to hold this with my left hand just out of the way. Okay, I'm going to come to the front of the bobbin. I'm going to grab the thread in the front. I'm going to wrap it over the top 5 times. All right, nice and tight. I'm going to take my left hand. I'm going to pull out any slack. And at the same time, I'm going to push this button in. Okay, and that's going to give us a nice knot around the center of our bobbin. Okay, the reason why we do it this way, we don't want a very secure knot at the end. We want something that's going to slip off freely. Let's say we tied a couple overhand knots in there and called it a day. We wound our bobbin, we start to sew. The closer we get to the end of our bobbin, the tighter that stitch is going to get because it's inevitably locked to the bobbin. So at the end, that thread is going to pull tight and actually shrink whatever you're sewing up considerably at the stitch line, and it'll look like a mess. So we want that to slip off the throat of the bobbin nice and easy, but be strong enough to hold it tight while we wind our bobbin. So now that this is set up, when I push this in, it engages a pulley against the drive belt of the machine. I'm going to take the thread out of the eye of the needle. Okay, while we do this, I'm going to lift our foot. I locked our foot up out of the way, and I'm just going to give it a little bit of gas. Now this little spring right here, riding in between the flanges of our bobbin, when the bobbin starts to fill up with thread, it'll press against the spring and it'll actually stop the bobbin from overloading. So this will stop on its own. You don't have to worry about it. I prefer to have a bobbin winding while I'm sewing. So once this is done, we're going to set up another bobbin to wind while we're sewing. So when this one runs out, we'll already have one ready for us. There we go, stopped on its own. Just going to pull it off the collar there, cut it. All right. So now, if you look here, we've got this is called our bobbin case, if you remember. This is the little finger that was holding the bobbin in place. Take a look here, this is our tension spring for the bobbin. And this is our groove that our thread is going to ride in, okay? I'm going to drop bobbin in, drop it down that groove, then pull it behind that spring like that. And then when I pull this, I want that bobbin to rotate clockwise, just like it's doing. Okay. Now we're ready to load this back in the machine. I'm going to lift that tab up, right, and that's going to hold our bobbin in place. Now we're ready to feed it in the machine. Get the thread over the back of my hand so it's out of the way. I'll come over to the side of the machine. All right, so you can see the little hole in the center of our bobbin, in the center of our bobbin case. And if you look right here, you can see the post in our hook. This right here is actually the hook, this little guy. That's what is grabbing the top thread and looping it around our bobbin to generate our stitch. So we're going to find that center post, push it in, make sure it's in all the way. Looks good to me. It's clicked, everything's engaged. I can drop this back. Now, like I was saying before, I can do this blindfolded. We don't have to tip the machine back. If you need access, you can actually just look through this window right here, slide it back up. So we've got a fresh bobbin in there. I'm going to thread my needle again from left to right. Just like that. Lift my foot. I'm going to pull this between the two toes of the foot. I'm going to hold this And I'm going to use my hand wheel on the side of the machine. And we're going to walk this. We only want to walk this in one direction, but we're going to walk it one full rotation, okay? So this is going to go one full rotation. Our thread take-up arm over here, which is in neutral, is going to go all the way down and then come all the way back up, okay? And that's going to tell me that we completed a stitch. So we're going to walk that hand wheel through all the way down and then all the way back up. And I'm just going to pull on that tail and you'll see the little thread coming up right here from the bottom. Okay? You can use the tip of our scissors, just grab that loop. And now we've retrieved our bottom thread and we're ready to sew. All right, so now that we're threaded up and we're ready to start sewing, it's been a little while. I'm a little rusty, you know. I want to, before I go right into sewing our bag here, I want to get reacquainted with this machine. And this goes for every machine that you sit down at. Don't be afraid to sew samples, grab some test fabric, and set it up so that you don't mess up your final project. So what I'm going to do right now is just sew a simple spiral. I'm going to start here on this corner. I'm going to use the inside edge of my foot. Okay, I refer to this as the inside of my machine, and this here is the outside of my machine. Now that we're set up and ready to sew, it's been a little while. I want to get reacquainted with the machine and its feeds and speeds. So I got a piece of test fabric here. I'm just going to sew a simple spiral chasing my previous stitch line all the way in until I feel like I'm comfortable and I got a handle on this machine. I'm going to use the inside edge of my foot right here. I refer to this as the inside of my machine. This is the outside of my machine. Okay, I'm going to use the inside edge of my foot as registration. Okay, I'm going to run it up against the edge of my fabric. So I got my knee lift, right? I'm lifting the foot with my knee. I'm going to place my fabric underneath the eye of the needle, drop it down. Now this is very important. Not every machine does this, but a lot of machines do this, so it's a good habit to get anchored in. So whenever I start sewing, you either want to hold the threads or you want to anchor them to the machine. Sometimes it just means putting your finger on it while you put the first stitch in. This prevents the thread from backfeeding, so I'm going to give it a little bit of gas. Now that I've done that, I don't need to hold the threads anymore. The previous stitches that I put in will do that job, but it'll prevent the machine from sucking those threads back in. We're good to go. I got 3 stitches in. I'm going to put in our back tack. I'm going to hit reverse, push it all the way to the bottom and hold it down. And I'm just going to give it a little bit of gas. All right. Let go of reverse and move forward. And that is our back tack. Now, that stitch length is a little bit short for me, so I'm going to take it from 2 to a 3. I think that'll be a little bit better. So back tack is in, we're good to go. I'm just going to use my hands to guide the fabric. The feed dogs, which are the teeth underneath here, they're going to pull the fabric through with help from the presser foot on top. I'm really here just to kind of guide it through, okay? So the less I do, the better off we are. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of gas, and I'm just guiding it. All right, so we're getting close to the end. I'm going to use my hand wheel. Again, we only want to walk this hand wheel in one direction. It's the direction that we're sewing in, okay? So I'm just going to hand walk it the last few stitches. I'm going to stop with my needle down, okay? And that's going to provide a nice pivot point. Lift my foot with my knee lift. I'm going to pivot, drop my foot again, start to sew. Repeat this process until you feel comfortable enough to start sewing on your own project. Walk those last couple stitches in. I want to pivot. The side of my foot should be riding our last stitch line, and that's what's really going to give us that spiral moving in. Cool thing about this is that it really allows you to see your progress as you're sewing. Within the spiral, you see your progress change, as well as multiple spirals as you stack them up over time. You can really see how you've improved your sewing. All right, so now I've had some practice, feeling pretty comfortable on my machine. I'm gonna walk it into neutral and make sure that my thread take-up arm is all the way at the top and our needle down here is out of our fabric. And that tells me everything is in neutral. So when I lift my foot, everything is gonna pull away nice and smooth. We use our scissors, trim that up, and I think we're ready to set our zipper on our tool pouch. All right, so slide her aside for now. This is our fabric. This is our zipper. So quick rundown on our zipper here. We've got our teeth. This is a coil zipper, so you'll note that it's made up of a continuous plastic chain rather than individual metal or plastic teeth. So this is great for going around bends. It's nice and curvy and flexible. It also allows us to sew this bag flat because we can separate the whole zipper, which you'll see in a second. All right, so this is the face of my zipper. This is the back side. You can see there's no teeth. Teeth are on the face, okay? This is our fabric, canvas, so both sides are nice. I'm picking this side to make our face, okay? So right now we're gonna take our zipper and we're gonna go face to face with our fabric along the shortest edge of our rectangle, okay? So if you look closely here, inside our stitch line, our serge, from what we did earlier, there's 2 stitches, okay? There's one stitch line that comes in a little bit closer to the edge than the other one, okay? I'm going to use that as a visual marker. I know from experience, if we were to sew our zipper on normally and just flush it up to the edge here, when we go to turn this over and open it up, we actually start to see some of our serge thread pop through and it doesn't look very good. So what we're going to do is we're going to use that stitch line as a guide, and we're just going to cheat our zipper in about 1/8 of an inch from the edge, which you can see right here. So now that's where I want my zipper. I'm going to use the inside edge of my foot here, okay? I'm going to line it up with the edge of my zipper cape right here, okay? Which in turn will actually put the outside edge of my foot right up against the back side of this zipper coil, the plastic teeth, okay? So it gives it a nice straight line to run against. So we're going to push our threads to the back of the machine. I'll lift my foot. I'm going to use my hands, both hands, to anchor my zipper in place where I want it, and I'm going to place it under the needle, okay? I got my 1/8 inch reveal on the side here. I'm going to stabilize my threads, okay? And I'm going to put that first stitch in, just boom, 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 all right? Hit reverse, back up those 3 stitches, and let it go forward 3 stitches. That's our back tack. So we have a nice strong anchor there, okay? So I want to make sure that this 1/8 of an inch reveal goes all the way down our fabric and it looks nice the whole way. Best way to do that is to only go 1 inch or 2 at a time, okay? So I'm going to come from my needle. My foot's holding everything in place here, so I just need to come out here. I'm using the edge of the machine as my guide. I'm just going to anchor these first 2 inches and sew to my anchor. Give it a little bit of gas, right up to my anchor, I'm going to come out back to that edge, match that reveal we have going down here, clamp everything down, sew to my anchor. Okay, we're going to repeat that process. Just take it a couple inches at a time. We're getting close to the end here. Okay, we're going to use our hand wheel to walk in those last few stitches so we don't overshoot it. All right, reverse, put in that back tack. I'm going to use the hand wheel again, and we're going to walk our thread take-up arm back into neutral. I can't stress that enough. If we stop with this down here and we try to pull our work away from the machine, it's going to be a whole mess of thread underneath our throat plate that we'll have to clean out. So to avoid that, return this to neutral, lift your foot, and we can pull away nice and smooth. All right, so we're going to trim our threads. And now we have our zipper basted to our fabric. Okay, get some more out of the way. So now we're going to take this and we're going to fold it open. Okay, so now we can see the nice face of the zipper, the nice face of the fabric. Our seam is nice and clean. We got everything else on the inside here. We're going to fold our zipper tape and our fabric just like that. Okay, give it a nice crease. I'm going to use the inside edge of my foot right here. I'm going to line it up to the top edge of my fabric. Okay, and that's going to give me an 1/8 of an inch reveal from the edge of our fabric to where our stitch line is going to be, and we're going to have a nice straight line to follow. Drop my foot, stabilize my threads, put in our back tack. Just a couple inches at a time. My focus is not on the needle. I know what the needle is going to do. I'm really looking at the inside edge of my foot and making sure that it's staying in a nice tight line with the edge of my fabric all the way down. All right, getting to the end. Use that hand wheel, walk it in, put in our back tack. Again, use that hand wheel, walk it into neutral. Now we're in neutral, I can lift that foot and I can pull our work away from the machine nice and smooth. All right, moving right along here. Trim our edges, and you can see we've got a nice straight stitch line going across the base of that zipper. Now we have 2 stitch lines holding that zipper in place, which is nice and strong. So now we have to get this edge of the zipper connected to this edge of our fabric, all right? So we're going to fold this in half. We want to make sure that our nice side of the zipper, nice side of the fabric is all on the inside. So effectively our bag is inside out. I'm looking at this edge and making sure they're nice and lined up. And then lastly, I'm looking at this edge. I'm going for that 1/8 inch reveal, the same thing we had here, which you can still see. We want on this side as well, and that's going to make sure again that our serged edge isn't peeking out of our stitch line on the face of the zipper, which can be really distracting. Okay, fold everything, crease it, it all looks good. So I'm going to repeat that process that I just did before. Line up inside edge of my foot with the outer edge of my zipper tape. Drop it. I'm going to stabilize my thread ends for that first stitch. First stitch is in, putting in my back tack. 3 forward, 3 back, 3 forward again. I'm going to anchor off the first 2 inches. Sew to my target. Pull out another 2 inches. Sew to my target. I'm going to repeat that till we get to the end of our zipper. Inside edge is following the edge of our tape right here. Take it right out to the end. Put my back tack in. Hand walk my machine back into neutral. I can lift and I can pull this away nice and smooth. All right, now we've got a functional tube or cylinder of material here. How do we get that last stitch line in up against that zipper? Well, that's the beauty of using this zipper that is unfinished. We can actually separate it all the way apart. Okay, now we have it nice and flat, and this allows us to get that stitch line in nice and clean, just like the other side. Make it look nice. I'm gonna give it a little bit of a crease, just making it easier to sew. Push my threads to the back of the machine. I'm gonna drop my foot. Inside edge of my foot is flush to the outer edge of my fabric, not the zipper tape, but the fabric. I'm going to stabilize my thread ends just by putting my finger on them. Put the first 3 stitches in, back tack, pull the first couple inches out, anchor it, sew to your target. Pull out the next couple inches, sew to your target. Just connect the dots all the way down, and you'll have a nice, clean looking stitch line. When you get to the end, walk the last stitches in, put in a little back tack, walk it into neutral. Okay, you can lift your foot, pull your work away nice and smooth. All right, so now we're just going to clean up the edges a little bit. All right, now that we've got our zipper sewn to both sides of our bag, it's ready for our slider, okay? This is our zipper slider right here. I'm sure you all have seen these on jackets. Real quick, just to call out a few details. This is our puller. This inside here is the throat of our zipper, okay? And then that's gonna integrate with the teeth of our zipper. So, all right, so here we're gonna place our slider upside down, arrow facing back at me. You can see the head here kind of makes an arrow shape. I want that upside down, arrow facing me. We're gonna take our fabric real quick. We're just gonna trim the ends of our zippers flush to our fabric. Okay. Our bag is face up, right? We're gonna fold our bag almost like we're gonna fold a paper airplane. Not quite. We want the top 2 teeth meeting right there. We want our zipper at an angle like this, okay? So now we're gonna take our slider. We're gonna take one end of our slider, one row of teeth, and we're gonna slide it into our slider halfway. Now when I say halfway, I want the top of our tape going in no further past this midpoint, okay? Now I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna come in from this side, and we're just gonna give it a gentle push. You can actually hear the teeth engaging, all right? Gentle push. Now we're gonna take our slider, and we're gonna zip it all the way off, all right? Now we're gonna go back to the end of the zipper that we started on. Just gonna break a couple teeth. I'm going to pull it apart, but not all the way. We want to make sure that this end of our zipper is still closed. And we're going to repeat the process. So slider, upside down, facing me. I'm going to thread the zipper coil in halfway. I'm going to come in the other side halfway. The tops of the tape are matched up. I'm just going to give it a little push. Pull it to the center. Now our zipper is closed on both ends and our zipper is anchored in the middle. Everything looks good. So now that we have our slider on our bag, our zipper zipped up, we're ready to move over to the walking foot machine and close our sides. So, our walking foot machine, as the name implies, feet actually walk. It has 2 feet here that work in unison to move heavy material through the machine. Everything on this machine is a lot more robust than our regular Lockstitch machine. Interesting side note, this is also a Lockstitch machine. They both generate the same stitch. It's just how they generate the stitch and how they feed the material through that really sets them apart. You'll note that the casing is a lot bigger, the hand wheel is a lot bigger. The thread, the needle, the feet, everything on this machine is far more robust. This is fantastic for heavy canvas sewing, nylons. We use these in our shop a lot. We sew through plastic, we've sewn through wood, believe it or not. We've sewn through a lot of things. Very stout machine. The reason why we're using this on our tool pouch, because we're about to sew over this plastic zipper. Now, 9 times out of 10, I think our smaller machine, our lighter duty machine, would actually get over that zipper no problem. But on that 10th time, when that needle hits that zipper coil in the perfect spot, it's going to deflect it to the side and we're going to have a broken needle, and then you're going to have to learn how to change that. So to avoid that, we're going to use this machine. It has a nice heavy needle. It's not going to budge when we sew over that zipper coil, and we're going to have a nice strong seam on our ends here. The anatomy of this machine is very similar to our Lockstitch. You're going to find all the same features. Again, just a little bit more robust. So we're going to have our reverse lever over here, okay? Functions exactly the same way. You hold it all the way to the bottom while you're sewing backward, and you let it up, and then you're sewing forward again, okay? Bobbin winder is on the front of the machine. Functions exactly the same way as we did on our Lockstitch machine. Thread tension is here. So all the same functions as our regular Lockstitch machine, just bumped up. Power switch is on the right. Our machine is on. We've got a single pedal, and we also have a knee lift, just like before. So here's our gas pedal and our brake. So heel back to brake, toe down to go. And then we've got our knee lift up here. This is how we actuate our feet, our presser feet up here. We're ready to rock and roll here. I'm going to pull the threads to the back of the machine, just like on our other machine. This is our thread take-up arm. Again, all the way at the top of its rotation, so that tells me that it's in neutral, and we're ready to go. Now, you'll note that I've folded my fabric, so we have about a ½ inch here. We could put this all the way at the top, but what happens is we end up with a lot of bulky material in the corners. Then when we turn this bag right side out, we end up with a little ugliness in the corners. So to avoid that, we're just going to bump it down a little bit. It's going to mean there's less material in those corners when we pop them out. It'll look nice and square. All right, thread to the back of the machine, lifting my foot up. I'm going to drop my needle just on the inside of our serged edge, just to make sure that we don't see it on the outside of the bag when we're all done. All right, so I'm going to stabilize those threads for the first stitch. All right, reverse, I'm going to back up, put in our back tack, and just go nice and smooth, and it's going to go right over that zipper. You can put a back tack over the zipper if you want. Some people don't feel the need to. It's up to you. I'm just going to take this all the way out to the end. Don't be shy to use that hand wheel. Walk in those last couple stitches, push in reverse, back it up, take it forward. Return our thread take-up arm into neutral right here. We're going to lift with our knee lift, and we can pull away nice and smooth. I'm going to use my scissors, trim our threads there. And now we're going to rotate, and we're going to do the same thing on this side. Hold my threads to the back of the machine, drop my foot where I want it, put in that back tack. Again, you can back tack over the zipper coil if you want. It's not necessary, but you definitely want to back tack at the end of each stitch line. Hand walk till we're back in neutral. I can lift with my knee. I can pull away smooth. We are almost done. All right, just going to trim my threads. Everything looks nice and clean. I think we're ready to turn it right side out. All right, so we're just going to slide our slider open to the rest of that zipper. I like to go corner by corner. Just push out that corner, walk to the next corner, push it out, walk to the next corner, push it out. Once you get all 4 corners, turn the rest of the bag. Close your zipper up, and that's our pouch. Here's a quick way to rethread your machine or change the color of your thread without having to remember how all this goes back together, okay? First step, we're gonna come to our thread stand. We're gonna pull off a couple strands, and we're gonna cut a nice long tail. So now I can remove my first cone, bring in my new cone, and then we wanna tie a very simple overhand knot. Just one knot. We need it nice and small so it passes through all of our loops here. So now I'm going to come back down to the tip of the needle here. I'm going to pull the thread out of the eye of the needle so that we don't stress the tip of the needle. I'm going to lift my foot all the way. When I do that, it takes pressure off the tension springs. Okay, so our thread pulls through nice and easy. Okay. I'm just going to pull that knot all the way through. Nice long tail. Trim our threads so we have a nice clean tip. And then we're going to rethread our needle from left to right, just like that. Pull it to the back of the machine and we're ready to go. This works on all of these machines, whether it's the serger, the cover stitch, the walking foot machine. You can use this on your home machine. It works with any machine. So it's a really simple way to get your thread changed without having to remember how complicated the lacing of this thread can be. Hey guys, if it's been a minute since you've been in here and you need a quick refresher on everything that we just went over, we've got the shop safety manual. It actually lives in the shop. It's also available online. But it goes over all the basic details you need, everything that we just reviewed in regard to the machines, as well as some safety protocols in getting out of here in the event of an emergency. If you're still having technical difficulties with some of the equipment, there are skilled technicians here that can help you problem solve anything from needles to thread to proper equipment usage, you name it. So there's always a knowledgeable technician here to help you. All right, folks, that about wraps it up for our step-by-step walkthrough on building our tool pouch. If you found this video helpful, you can go to www.openworksbemore.org. You can learn more about this workshop and some of the other workshops that they have here. Last thing we do is we want to make sure we keep this space nice and clean. If you can leave it as you found it or cleaner for the next people who come in and use it,